Finance Committee meeting to order for today, September the 14th. It's, did we lose Commissioner Cook?
He just went to the
stepped
restroom,
away?
I believe.
He went
Okay.
to grab a soda.
All right, well, filibuster for a moment. I was saying earlier during the break, David, I'm expecting great things from you. One of the things I think you should have already picked up on is in the last meeting, as there has been in many other meetings, they have a lot of nice color photographs. And we are missing that from the Finance Committee. So
Financial statements in color now.
I said color photographs, so I put that charge out there too. You gotta jazz it up somehow.
Got a pretty nice digital Canon camera at home.
Yeah.
Well, we got one in the building. So I'll move on with the agenda. We have no public comments to be offered today, so we have our list on the approval. So we have the minutes for the meeting of the 17th, and Chair will entertain a motion for that, please. I move to approve. Is there a second?
There's a second here?
Okay, any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Passes, thank you. And then item 2 is a contract award for electrical services. And by the way, this was heard and reviewed and approved in the facilities meeting. And Andrew, I'll let you give the quick highlights.
Yes, sir. We have need occasionally for larger electrical maintenance tasks that take significant amount of time to be able to put one of our key staff members that has electrical skill with some additional hands in order to complete that task instead of having to tie up the 2 or 3 staff members that are sufficiently skilled to handle electrical maintenance jobs. So the request here is to actually authorize not to exceed budgets inside the operations budgets for these individual divisions for these larger jobs. We would take one of our staff members and use labor from a third-party contractor, Jam Electric, which is a local electrical contractor, to complete those tasks so that we can have some flexibility in our maintenance availability given some of our staffing issues in those areas. So these would be budgeted. These are within the budgeted amounts for the individual divisions purchased electrical services budgets that are part of the annual operating budget. So the total amount would be $60,000, $30,000 split between the 3 wastewater plants, $20,000 for systems pumping and maintenance with the lift stations, and $10,000 for water production needs.
Okay.
Note that these are not guaranteed. We're going to expend all these funds. This is just to authorize we can expend up to this amount for these additional services. And there's an hourly rate.
Question, what, I will assume y'all have service contractors, do you always just call them, work an hourly rate, I didn't know if they could come for it.
Because of the dollar value that the budget would be over $25,000 for the items, we brought this for you for that, and rather than having to continually go out every single time and get quotes for every job. This is,
$195 an hour
yes.
on electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all do that?
We did not bid this out per se. We have got other quotes from additional electricians, and it's within reason for what we're paying. That's a minimum of 2 hours. Yeah.
So basically, minimum $380.
Yes.
$390.
Yes.
All thirty times all.
Yeah, now, this, as I understand, and let me tag on to Commissioner Stevens' question, is we wouldn't, I only imagine that we wouldn't really do a call-out for someone to do some work for us. This would be to do mostly program work that exceeds, I would call, normal operation and maintenance activities by our current staff.
For an example would be we're replacing panels at a water production well facility. Rather than tying up 3 staff members for that, we have 1 staff member work with 2 people from Jam Electric to install that, to run all the conduits and pull the feeders and land everything in the panels.
Okay.
Replacing breakers and stuff like that, we handle internally without needing additional assistance.
I just think double rate, what I'm used to seeing from other local or non-local.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's not what we're being charged, that's just saying.
Right.
And I could assume that if you have a staff member working with the electricians from here, that it's good information for them to gather
Oh,
to
absolutely.
watch the process.
Absolutely. They get, excuse me, our staff members know the way we want things done.
Right.
But they also know, best practices from industry. When the third party comes in, they can provide those for us as well.
Right, yeah.
I don't question the need at all, for the concept, just for,
Right,
I would think it seems double what I seen. Again, that's another major union contractors who pay union rates in the Brunswick area. Charge, maybe I'm way disconnected from what the current market is.
Also,
Ready for
this
the motion here?
Firm you just named
Okay.
has never quoted a job for us.
All right, I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend the full commission authorize not to exceed budgets to JAM Electric Company, Inc. For as-needed labor-only electrical services in the amount of $60,000.
I'll say it's good market.
Okay, other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Passes, thank you. Get back to our agenda item. Next is number 3, long-term water monitoring, water quality monitoring. This was also one that was heard, reviewed, and approved in the last meeting at the facilities. So, Andrew, highlights, please.
Yes, sir. We're required by our discharge permits for the 3 wastewater facilities to maintain what's known as a watershed protection plan. They require dry and wet weather sampling in multiple locations upstream, downstream, and at the discharge point to confirm that water quality, in-stream water quality sample standards are being met. This helps with stormwater data as well. So this would be to renew the agreement with Integrated Science and Engineering to complete the samples, run the lab analysis, and produce the annual report required to be submitted to EPD. We've been using ISE for several years. In fact, these services were performed by ISE for Glynn County prior to the creation of joint water and sewer. So the 3 values you see there, Academy Creek, $43,500, Dunbar Creek and Southport, just shy of $15,000, for a total combined cost of $72,526. In recent years, we've averaged about $78,000 a year for this service. Last year's was higher and inflated that average a little bit because we had to do some additional samples the first year of the new permit that we got at Academy Creek.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend the full commission approve a contract award to Integrated Science and Engineering for the fiscal year 2023 watershed protection plans in the amount of $72,526.
Other questions or comments, please? Hearing none, all those in favor? Passes, thank you. And item 4 is the HVAC replacement at Academy Creek Warehouse. And again, this is one other item in the Facilities Committee that was reviewed and approved last meeting. Andrew?
Yes, sir. The warehouse at Academy Creek is a converted dissolved air flotation structure. They're large concrete bays where materials are stored and it's open air. Currently located on that portion of the building are residential units which are insufficient to actually maintain adequate temperature control and humidity control for staff in those areas, particularly in the summer months. Also has some problems heating it in the winter months. So we went out to quotes from 3 providers that will install 2 5-ton units on the structure to correct the issue, which is in line, the sizing is in line with the architectural design completed for the overall structure that was not awarded as a part of the Academy Creek rehab job due to expense of the building improvement at that time. So we got 3 quotes here: Hall Heating and Air and the AC guys and Certified Electric. Hall Heating and Air and the AC guys would do the HVAC install and provide the equipment, but they would not do the electrical necessary to complete the task. So we got a quote from Charlton Electric, who we have used on smaller jobs in the past, for $5,200, which was being included in those quotes. Certified Electric would be a one-stop shop. Combined price for Hall Heating and Air would be $28,386. These funds would be pulled from Project 2211 in the capital projects plan for JWSC facilities improvements. So that is where we're at with that.
Chair will entertain a motion.
All right, I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend the full commission approve the contract award to Hall Heating and Air Incorporated in the amount of $23,186 for the HVAC installation at Academy Creek Warehouse, and approve a contract award to Charlton Electric for electrical improvements necessary to facilitate the HVAC installation in the amount of $5,200.
I'll second the motion, I do a comment though.
Please.
As a licensed electrician, which I am, I will say that for Charlton Electric to drive all the way from Folsom to do this, they've got a significantly lower rate than $195.
Agreed. They do.
We're going to contract T&M material with somebody else for $195. We folks don't vote.
Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those approve? Passes, thank you. Item 5 is the low-income household water assistance program agreement renewal. David?
You may recall, last year, the full commission on December 16th approved for the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission to enter into an agreement with the state, particularly the Department of Human Services, for the purposes of the LIWAP, the Low Income Water Housing Assistance Program. Since that time, customers within our area, about 736 customers have been approved for $320,899.59 worth of assistance, which averages out to about $436 per household. The agreement that was signed last December expires the end of this month, and based on what we've seen from the amount of assistance that our customers have received, we view the program as being very successful, and would like to encourage you basically to renew that agreement for another year, which would run October 1st through September 30th, 2023.
Okay, I have a motion, please.
I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission Finance Committee recommend that the full commission approve the low-income household water assistance program agreement with the Georgia Department of Human Services.
Okay, comments or questions? This has been a successful program that
Yep.
we've basically funneled resources through locally to the Community Action Agency that has dispersed the funds for those needy customers, and it's worked very, very well. So, hearing no other comments, all those in favor? Passes, thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Item 6 is a change order for the Arco Water and Sewer Improvement Project, and I think this one we want to
Defer, I think. yeah.
defer
Yes, sir,
to the
unless-
next meeting.
Per the request at the Facilities Committee, I would recommend we defer this to the next stated Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to defer.
Disagreement between the contractor and the engineer on the amount of the change order. That was discovered last night, yes. We deferred it.
Yep.
We did,
No, no.
sorry.
Did-
Okay,
Did you make the motion, or I? I thought you made the motion. No, I didn't make. Oh, you'll make the motion? Okay, you can, okay, I'll second the motion then.
all right, and to restate the motion, it would be to defer to the next scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee.
Correct.
So, comments or questions? This issue became in flux again last night, so it was decided in the last meeting, and soon to be here, that it best to put it off until the issues are resolved. So, all those in favor, show of hands.
Okay.
Passes, thank you. And then we have discussion items. So, item number 1, is we talked about employee retention bonus. Andrew?
Yes, sir. So this will be the third discussion of this that we've had. In the last meeting, there was request that we look at what positions had been vacant in the previous years. So I pulled all the data for regular budgeted hours. And when I say regular budgeted hours, if the position is vacant at the time of budgeting, we only budget 50% of the year for that position. So if a position was vacant at the beginning of fiscal year 22, or let's say April of last year, it would have been budgeted for 50%, unless we had made an offer to somebody that we expected to be, that position to be filled prior to July 1.
And that's for the purposes of determining the available resources.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. So I've took all those hours, added them up, and you see the divisions there. Works out to just shy of 320,000 total budgeted hours. Hours regular there is the amount of hours that were either paid out in regular wages, vacation time, or sick time, comp time throughout the year for each division that we've had in our organization. And you kind of look at those divided, what we've got, what did we pay out versus what we budgeted. And to me, it kind of got three kind of tiers that fall out of that. Systems, pumping, and maintenance, and finance being below 80% of budgeted hours actually completed. The production, P&C is planning and construction or engineering. Wastewater treatment, distribution, and admin services in that 86 to 91% range. And then Office of the Director and Purchasing, 98 and almost 100% hours worked. Purchasing actually did not have any vacancies, but throughout the year, somebody might have got paid for 78 hours in a paycheck instead of 80, so it works out to where they don't actually get 100% of those hours.
That hour regular, that's inclusive of overtime?
No, that's not inclusive of overtime. That's just regular hours.
The hour overtime that was paid is not in that at all, or not in there as a calculation of 1.5?
It's not in there at all. Overtime is not in there at all for any division. So this is just regular hours, standard, for lack of a better term, 8 to 5 type stuff. So looking at that, one of the questions was, when we were talking about doing this, and Commissioner Stevens, you had brought this up, if somebody's been working in a lot of additional hours as a result of covering for the vacancies, they may need, if we're going to do a retention bonus, a higher retention bonus than somebody that's not having to cover for additional work. So looking at these three tiers, kind of think that allows us to do that approach without having those concerns. So looking at eligibility, and this is some stuff, obviously you had to be employed on June 30th at the end of the fiscal year. And if we were to move forward with this, this would be done following the completion of the audit. So nothing is going to be, approved today. But obviously this was from last year's. So you had to be employed as of June 30th at the end of the fiscal year, and you have to remain employed at the time of the award. So we have had a couple of people that were employed June 30th that have since left our employment. So obviously they would no longer get a retention bonus at that point. Looking at it from a monthly basis, you would not be eligible for a retention bonus if you were on probation during the period. When you start with us, you're on 12-month probation in every position. And in certain positions, if you're required to have licensure within 12 months, if you don't make it, we can extend your probationary period for an additional 3 months or 6 months in order to allow you to get that licensing. So if you're on probation at any point during the period, those months you would not be eligible. So let's say somebody started February of 21 and then came off of probation February of 22. So for the months of March, April, May, and June, those 4 months, they would not have been on probation, so they would get whatever the monthly retention bonus is for that.
The probation not for this on wrong, just because they
New hire. Yes, new hire, right. New hire probation.
Quick question, probation, does that apply to someone moving from one position to another?
Like my position. Is that part of that probation?
It wasn't the intention, obviously, if somebody's got a promotion within the time, they have been retained at the employment. This would be for new people, obviously, in that regard.
I don't know why we would want to give it to new people as well, they still.
That certainly could be done.
Be here 2 days. So
Yeah, that certainly could be done,
They
but
were here for the minimum threshold, whether they were new at that.
if we wanted to establish a minimum threshold, then we could do that. Essentially, we've hired a lot of people in the last 12 months to fill a lot of vacancies, and so we've got a lot of people that's got, at the end of the fiscal year, 1 month or 3 months worth of tenure. We're glad that we have them here. They're doing great work for us, but they weren't the ones that were covering the shifts the previous 9 months that we're having to go on. And then you must have received a overall score of 3 or higher. We do a 1 to 5 scale. A 3 means you meet expectations. 2 means, I think the term on the form is you're progressing, but you do not meet expectations. And 1, of course, means you do not meet expectations.
What percentage of the organization doesn't meet the minimum expectations?
Very small percentage. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but a very small percentage. And then obviously you would not have been suspended in the previous 12 months. obviously you wouldn't have been terminated either, but then you wouldn't be eligible for a retention bonus. So if you faced a 3-day suspension in the previous year, you would not be eligible for this. So just as an example, this is using the monthly thing that we're talking about. The tiered structure, if you talk of tier 1, those are the ones that had the due for the most covering for vacant positions. These numbers could be changed. $200 a month of time worked for that. Tier 2, those 5 groups at $100 a month, and tier 3 at $50 a month, because even those groups may not have necessarily had vacancies in them. They help backfill other people's work as well from, helping out. So based off that and the probationary approach that I was talking about, the potential total cost, and this is actually the top end of what it would be, because I haven't went back and removed those individuals that didn't have a 3 on their appraisal, for example. Be $160,600 in order to do that, which would make 112 employees eligible for a bonus, retention bonus for the year. We have 154 budgeted positions. We currently have, it changes every couple of weeks, I think we have 135 active employees right now. So that, that means that 20 to 25 employees, depending on time of award, would not be eligible at that point because they have not been here a year or have recently been hired.
So let me ask, so the pool of money that was set aside for employee salaries and is somewhere around $1 million.
Somewhere around $1 million.
We don't have an exact figure yet.
Right.
So by doing this, we're looking at like about 16% of that money.
Something like that,
Right.
yes, sir.
So that would still afford us to make the investment in long-term in putting the money, a sizable amount of money into the pension, which is, it's a good time, the market's down, it's a good time to put money into the pension because the market's in the cycle will go back up. So, we'll actually, that money will be worth more for us. So the 80% is a realistic target, I would think, at this point.
So, if you do that, that works out the 112 employees. The average would be $1,433.93. No one would be getting $1,433.93. That's simply a calculation. Everybody that would be getting a bonus would be getting a round figure, minus taxes.
And bonus means that it's not pensionable money. It's just a bonus
One time.
for all the extra effort that the employees have put out.
So of course, for those tier 1 in this structure, employees, a maximum bonus if you were here the full 12 months and not on probation would be $2,400, and the minimum bonus somebody would get, simply because we don't have anybody in tier 3 that would qualify for a bonus through this program that wasn't here the full year. So it would be a tier 2 employee that, say, was off of probation at the end of May, and so the month of June they would be eligible for the bonus. They would get a $100 bonus at that point. Of course, the dollar value for the potential total cost would change relative to the percentage change in the monthly amount that, if we had decided to move forward, would be agreed upon. So example, if you changed it to 25, 50, and 100, or 100, 200, and 400, it would just percentage-wise change that total outlay of cost. Pull the data, for what it's worth, the data does line up with what I would have expected it to. When you look at it, I know those are the areas we've had the biggest decrease in staff members for the past year. Systems pumping being our largest division, on average, I think they were down 9 people throughout the year. So they were definitely doing additional work. And then we have 10 staff members in finance, and we were missing 2 the entire year, essentially.
Can you go back to percentage chart?
I'm trying to think of the perspective from if you're head of a division and you're down one person in a month, you're losing 160 hours worth of work. And we're certainly not paying overtime on that amount. And in a quarter, it's 520 hours. That's a lot of time to make up. And I know that a lot of the employees have had to do a lot of jobs. Water production was down 2 people for a sizable amount of time, were they not?
Water production was down 3 of their 6 people for about 3 months.
Right. So, so that means that the people that were working there had a lot of extra work to be done, because there aren't things that don't have to be done there. And we all know that, the water production isn't optional. It's something that has to go on and has to be done correctly all the time, so. I like the acknowledging the extra efforts that the employees have put out. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to invest in not only the pension, but also in our employees and the efforts they put out. And that's why I look at it, two good investments here that we could make.
Directionally, I'm okay with what we're doing here. With regard to pension, I feel more comfortable about if we look at what our funding percentage is, how long would it take for us to catch up on it? If we did this, what would the difference be over time or do we have a concern there? And so that's where I'd like to see it before I would move on anything regarding pension fund.
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, I like the concept of giving people protection funds. I think we should refine the methodology behind it. It may be even, I mean, one thing that concerns me a little bit is that the budgeted hours are, you did budget vacant positions. Well, I mean, that doesn't really reflect what people are really doing. If you've got a vacant position that's not in the budget, that's liable to skew those numbers 100%. I mean, the way we're treating it, make enough division, I don't know. But if they've got 10 positions that you didn't have any projection for, and you budget those 50%, then that significantly skews the numbers and makes their situation look better than it really is. So for them to get half of what finance got, I don't know that that's fair. I think we need to, really drill into the real, drill down a little further before we make decisions on who gets what. Looking at some of those, I don't know that, no offense to finance, but I don't know that finance should get double the way that we're treating this. Because there's a 11-point difference on our spreadsheet for what's production,
Water production, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that gap's hard to get really close. I get it, you gotta draw a line somewhere. I just think we all really, really understand the methodology, where to draw that line, and make sure that the people who are I can see a lot of them being upset with those, that they get half of what another division does, because they were, one FTE difference in the vacancy rate. And, the intent here is to improve morale, not to accidentally do something that we believe is in good faith, that, everybody else gets upset about.
You could consider just an across-the-board same amount for everyone in the organization, but, that doesn't reflect the reality of how much extra work a number of the employees have had to do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got some time in now, because you gotta wait on all of it.
Yeah, the audit's scheduled to be presented at the October meeting.
So, I mean, I'm just gonna continue to refine it, understand conceptually, sounds like we all agree conceptually to something.
Yes. How about other three commissioners? Did we get any feedback from them or none? Okay. All right. Well, sound like to me that we're gonna be the ones to push this over the top, so.
I think so, yeah.
Let's try to give Andrew some more detail about refining it, Tripp.
Yeah, I'd like to understand what the total, when you say budgeted FTE, what, perfect world, what's the real flex? I mean,
But
say once you get to the budget, you're not asking for the position anymore.
If we have a position on the org chart and it's not filled at the time we do the budget, because about 4 years ago, give or take, we had a lot of discussion at the time of budgeting that the previous practice had been to budget those positions at 100% all year long. And the decision was made that we were over budgeting for personnel, and you weren't the only one, but yeah, you brought it up.
That's the way to do it, but there's a difference between budgeting. There's budgeting in an operating budget, and there's budgeting in like, what is an approved position? I mean, you can have an approved position that you're not carrying in the operating budget. It's still a budgeted, approved position. It's just you're not gonna be able to hire for it. I mean, it's approved, it's sitting there, but, you're not gonna be able to.
I think that's kind of where you got to, is if it was an empty seat at the time we approved the budget, we decided, okay, 50% is the only funding we're gonna put in there.
Right, exactly.
Know the position.
Because the assumption, yeah, the assumption would be, I mean, in our business, we do have some turnover, and if it's, that position's vacant now, we might fill it, and then somebody else might leave 3 months into the year. And it works,
Way too budget.
right.
Right.
But that is not, the budget is not designed for this scenario here. So in that scenario, let's just make, taking division, let's say wastewater treatment, they've got 9 people, and they've got 1 open position, and you put that at 50%, well, now they've got 9.5 people.
Right,
And if they've got 9 of them, they're, with, 5% vacancy.
right.
That is not truly a 5% vacancy, that's 10% vacancy.
I see what you're saying.
And if somebody else, you had just hired that person, they hadn't started, well, they had a vacancy that whole time, but now, that person's not.
I see what you're saying.
I just don't, I don't agree with the math, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I think it's well intended, I just think we need to refine the math, because I think what we'll find when we get down to it is those positions that have really high vacancies, that we only budgeted 50% of, that skewed the numbers opposite way of what we want to skew. Right?
It could. I don't know that happened, but it could. I think the one that has the highest vacancy rate for the 5 years I've been here has been systems pumping and maintenance. That has always had the highest vacancy rate. So if anything, that makes that 78% for budgeted hours for SB&M higher because, yeah, they probably had 4 vacancies that were budgeted at 50% last year.
So it's not, it might not affect this outlier, it might not affect this outlier, but those in the middle.
Right.
It's liable to move some.
It could move some of those, right?
It could move some of those rounds, all of a sudden now something that's, 86 goes under our
Right.
threshold.
I think the 50% worked much better when we didn't have so many vacancies, and this is kind of an anomaly from the norm.
Well, it's still fine for operating budget.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
definitely don't want to carry,
Yeah.
Because you're always going to be on budget, right? It's not truly budget.
Right, yeah, that's true, yeah. In terms of, Bob, what is your feeling about, with the pension, you want to look at what percentage we are
Yeah, I'd like to
funded?
see, an update of where we are with our funding,
Mhm.
pension versus what our look-ahead curve, where we're headed with it. So whatever amount we choose, whether it's 0 or up to 1.4
Right.
million to put over to the pension, that additional payment, if we choose to that, what's it gonna do to that forward curve?
Right.
I don't know enough about it right now without looking at the numbers to suggest maybe we don't need to do that.
Oh, Maybe, yeah.
Or, yes, we do. Okay, I just wanna be able to see the numbers to feel good about that decision.
Yeah.
So, principally, I'm okay with that discussion. It's just, I can't make a decision without.
Until we get all, we have to refine it to the
Yeah.
point, yeah.
I wanna see,
Right to the left.
that's right, I wanna see a forward curve, what that indebtedness is gonna be like.
Yeah. Well, the assumed rate.
Well, I was
of
going to pull it
return-
up, but I don't have permissions to get to that server right now.
The assumed rate of return is 7%, and we know we're not making that, so, yeah,
Any given 5-year window,
right,
that curve can have some dips or some rises.
sure.
And that's why we want to look at
Right.
a forward curve a little bit beyond that and see.
Yeah, and I believe we're using the smoothing method, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
we are.
Yeah, so, over a 5-year period, so that definitely makes a difference, so.
So that's where I am with regard.
Yeah, I think
to pension
don't quote me on the exact number, but I think the unfunded is 1.8, give or take, on the pension. And it's something like 83% funded on one of the bases and 95% funded on the other. Because it looks at it as an ongoing, it looks at it on market value, it looks at it on a planned termination, it's like 40% funded. But on the other ones, we're up in the 80 to 95% range, I think, on the funding
We're at
ratio.
1.8 unfunded, and we put in a maximum amount.
Right.
1.4, that's a big leap in that, support.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And with the retention bonus, there's really 2 goals, there's reward employees,
Mhm.
but there's also base retention.
Right.
Right.
I mean, organizationally, that's really our job, is to ensure that we can do the job of utility and fix retention. So, maybe we look at the retention bonus as you get 50% now, or a higher number maybe even, but you get X amount in the future if you're still here. It's
You could do, you could do something like that, yeah, we were,
almost like a re-sign bonus.
yeah, we were working off of last year's numbers, so that's why,
I mean, a lot of organizations do a sign-on bonus, it's almost like a re-sign. Hey, anybody that's here, as of this date, you'll get X amount of dollars, that's X amount, you're still on the books,
sure.
which incentivizes people to
That's an idea.
Not take a 50-cent raise at another organization across town, which is ultimately their goal.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you. That's a good discussion.
Okay. Francis, best for last today.
Wow. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before us is the financial statements for August the 31st, 2022. A couple of notes before we get into it. As Mr. Burrows mentioned, October 15th is the completion date for the audit. That will be, I think that falls on a Saturday maybe, Friday, Saturday. The commission meetings for that month will not be to the 19th and 20th. So we'll send out letters to the city and the county at that time saying that there will be a delay in that for that week till they get approved. Audit phone calls for any commissioners interested in speaking with the auditors will be on October the 17th. That's the tentative date.
We're gonna get some heads up on that. For example, if there are no findings, then I don't need to participate in that call,
Okay.
okay?
And that's what we want. That's what we expect.
That's
Not that we
what I-
don't want you to participate, we just don't want any findings.
That's my expectation, is there'll be no findings, okay?
We'll know that probably a week and a half before then. We're still in the audit process. So
Understood.
some of these numbers we'll mention, again, you'll hear we're still working.
Okay.
So, also for the October meeting, we will have a completed June 30th number for over budget, under budget number. So
Okay.
give you all to work with. Okay, first up is our balance sheet. Cash and cash equivalences, 4.4 million. We did receive 2 GFA draws. That brought our number back up. We're very glad for that. Unbilled revenue, it changed from the 1.65 of June 2021 to 1.78. We did complete that year-end adjusting entry. Our current total assets for the month or through August the 31st is $11,114,413. Down to capital assets or construction in progress, that total is $43,829,733, and I'll speak a little bit more about that on the project report. Our current liabilities, $6.782 million, and we're assets over liabilities by $4.3 million. So it gives us a current ratio of about 1.63, 1.64. Our long-term GFA payables is at $20,958,000. A little over 12 million of that is on the DW loan, the drinking water, the meter project. And 8.9 million is on the clean water loan. That's the facilities rehab program project. Page 2, I don't really have any speaking notes if there's any questions. Okay, on to page 3, summary revenue. Per discussion last month, when we did the budget for 2 months, we did use a 4-year average for the usage and fees, and that did bring the numbers more in check by almost 500,000. If we'd used a 1 month, 1/12 allotment versus the percentage, it would have been a variance of $500,000. So for
The 4 years was because that's when we changed the structure of the rates, so previous to that, the buckets came in differently, and so it skews the data.
yes.
Okay.
The July and August numbers combined together. For sewer, it went at 18.71%, water was 19.47%, the percentage used for debt was 16.60%, and admin was 16.75%. And again, that did make a difference, so we'll continue using those percentages. Interest income is highlighted because we are still working on the fiscal year ending numbers, so we haven't started the new year numbers. We'll wait till we get completed with one before we move on to that. Capital tap fees, we're at $456,630, which is up from $333,000 this time last year, which I do believe was up from the previous year.
Substantially.
Yes. Page 4, Expenses. Operating expenses, we are over budget by a little under $250,000 on expenses. Our POs are $1,452,000. Again, there's some blanket POs.
For chemical
Capital
purchases.
Yes, thank
and-
you, that was the word. And again, knowing that there were supply chain issues and lead time and all of that, some known things have already been placed on order to accommodate for that.
Those are open POs, right? That are-
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
right.
So to summarize that variance, it's a timing issue.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So altogether, the net operating revenue is actually at an $86,000 over budget number currently. Again, that number would be different if we had to use the 1/12 allocation. Any questions on expenses?
No concerns there. We're 1/6 of the year behind us. That's a very small variance.
Yes. And again, on some of the expenses, I don't think we have entered the number for the accrued payroll, so that will change those numbers a little. We're going to try to get that done the end of this week, beginning of next week.
Yeah, so if
And
you see us have a reduction on the, in the payments for the week, that's because we backed the payroll out from the end of the year.
Yes.
That
And
showed up in this year's budget.
And per the request, we did add an on-call line item for this new fiscal year to separate on-call versus overtime. So we will see that
Okay?
come in different. On to page 5, and supplemental schedule of cash balances. Again, on the revenue account, that number is up due to the GFA draws. On the investment accounts, those numbers have not changed. We're still waiting for the, I still need to calculate the fair market value adjustment. Again, that will be done the end of this week, beginning of next week. And that will change those somewhat. Page 6, bond trustee reserves, that is still at 15.38, but we have almost $500,000 on the Arco project, so at some point we will start a drawdown on those funds. We'll probably wait to the completion of the audit and start that process. Our funds are at $74,851,204.98 in available cash, be it restricted or unrestricted.
We still have, if we ever look in more to do something that are not cash.
This, our Synovus representatives actually came and had a meeting with us face-to-face, at which we introduced that topic. Didn't hear from them right away, but we got back in touch with them. And what they have proposed is a short-term laddered portfolio of Treasury securities. They say that based on their current estimates, and they also recommend holding these securities until maturity. Based on holding them to maturity, we would expect a yield of about 3.36%, which is certainly better than what you're getting in your savings account these days.
$20,000 a year.
Yeah, and this was based on an assumed portfolio of about $5 million that we
No,
were
that's,
taking out of the overnight cash and investing into this portfolio. It would have the same current fee structure, which is about 0.1%. It would have very little to no credit risk, being Treasury securities, limited interest rate risk, especially if interest rates continue to climb, of course. Very little liquidity risk because we could sell within a day. The only danger is if the rates continue to go up and we should have a situation where we need to liquidate instead of holding to maturity, then there's a risk of principal loss. But they view that as minimal at the moment.
Have we done the analysis on what the additional fees would be for our banking services
Not at
to
this time.
to offset those potential increase in interest?
I just think we can move on this one way or the other. I mean, we've been talking about it since I've been on board. And, I mean, $13 million sitting there like cash. I get it, we can't just put all $13 million in an account and hold it, lock it for 30 days. There's no reason we can't stay in and have it revolving on a quarter of it every 30 days or something. I mean, and just, moving it
So I've been speaking with Dave about, obviously, the less money we have with BB&T that we move to Synovus, it increases the fees we pay at BB&T. We don't want to move money and then end up losing money because we're paying additional fees with the banking
Sure, but on
services.
the each calculation,
Yeah. So,
we all be able to calculate that and say what it is, and this is, if it's a no-go, I'll set up right.
We'll probably have that within the week.
thank you, sir.
And the reality is now it's time to strike, because the inflation won't, eventually go back down, and then we're not.
Right.
I mean, 2 years ago, we wouldn't have, maybe a year ago, we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
You know, we did move the short-term funds last fall, moved over quite a few million
yeah, we moved,
then.
we moved a lot of it, and that's what I'm saying, why didn't we move more? I mean,
The intent was prior to June 30th to move some of that, and then I was out and
I
it,
get
you know,
a lot of the things going on.
right.
I mean, honestly, you could about hire a full-time FTE to do nothing, but manage this, and we still come out half man also.
So David, you would, to summarize, you'll be able to offer us a report next time, say, here's what we've done.
Right. Based
Action will be taken by the next meeting, yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Francis, continue.
All right, page 7, capital project report. Encumbrances to date for open projects, 18,524,000. We have several that have been completed, and I'm in the midst of working on wrapping up our fixed asset now and moving these over. We have $2,786,999 that are in project costs that are complete, and so that will reduce our construction in progress number and move that to the capital asset register.
And in the very near future, we should be closing out the North Mainland Splice project. We're waiting on record drawings. Get that done. Academy Creek should be wrapped up by the end of the year. So those are 2 large projects that will drop that construction and project number, probably drop it $20 million.
Right.
That'd be good, because this is probably the highest construction in progress number I think we've ever had. Yeah. I have notated at the bottom, project 2211, the North Mainland land acquisition. We have changed that designation to R&R. It is ARPA funding, that $2 million we received from ARPA last year, but we don't have a funding source on the worksheet for ARPA, so it was not getting included into the total cost at the bottom. So the funds are in the R&R reserve. So just a note there, it says R&R, that will be ARPA funded purchase.
You got a footnote to go along with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, to date, expenditures for the 2 months leading into this year, we're at $444,823.15 for projects and $3.5 million for our 2 GFA projects. Any questions or comments?
I'm all good. Thank you, Francis. Any other comments or questions for
Nope.
Francis? Anything else for David while we got him here?
Thank you.
David, a thought for the next meeting, it would probably be a good reminder for the board. If you could provide to us like a waterfall chart of our bond indebtedness, and again, our look ahead on it as to where we are with it and how we're progressing. It's always a good reminder to us to recognize that we rolled 2 bonds together, and we did that because of our financial strength. And I think it's good that we can carry that message to the community whenever we're asked, because that's usually a big question that comes to me when I'm talking to folks is about the finances. So I'd like to see that be a good reminder for the board. That'll count.
There you go.
Thank you, David. Hearing no other comments or questions or needs, and we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good challenge. Good challenge.
Yeah, well, you know,
Cash.
I had, you know, I was
To
on
move
the
that ball
sanitation board for years where I worked, and, you know, it's almost unheard of. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the upper 80s, you're like, that's like really good, because there's a lot of them that are down in the sixties.
I know, we can beat almost there.
Oh, yeah, I know, that's true.
What are we at now?
Well, we're about like 89%, pretty much?
We're at 89?
Yeah, I think we are, but see, the problem is that, you know, the rate of return is expected return is 7% a year, and you're not